this week I am channeling my inner Maverick from Top Gun, because when it comes to grading, I got a need for speed, and speed work is the theme of this week's 6 grading hacks that are coming at you. So last week I mentioned that at about the 9 or 10 year mark of my teaching career, I was exhausted by grading, and at the end of my rope, I would spend so many hours marking kids' papers, writing out detailed comments about how they could improve, only to have them get my papers back, glance at the grade, stuff them in their backpacks, throw them in the writing portfolios, or worse, put them in the recycling bin. That I couldn't do it anymore. So I realized that there were really like the same comments, like 10 grammar codes and maybe 10 or 12 content error codes, depending on the mode that we were working with, that I was writing on all those papers. So one afternoon I just sat down and I just typed them all up. Everything that I normally wrote out on papers, I just typed up and I created a coding system. So I'm gonna switch over real quick so you can kind of zoom in and see how it works. So hang on one second. All right, let me show you how I sliced my grading time down per essay from 20 minutes to just 5. This little guy here is the heart of the system. This is the code sheet that I created, basically writing down all those things I wanted to say to kids, but was tired of writing and writing again. This one we're gonna look at today is for literary analysis, but I actually made 4 different versions of it for the 4 different essay types that I teach in my class, and the content codes switch out depending on what mode we're working on, because there's different techniques for different modes, but the grammar pretty much stays the same for all of them. So in the center column, you can see the grammar codes, and I'll zoom in just a second. The grammar codes are numbered. The content codes on the right-hand side are lettered. So whenever a kid sees a number on a sheet, it's a grammar code. Whenever they see a letter, it's a content code. So if you zoom in, you can see, and you can pause the video if you want to take a closer look. I have the rule, and then sometimes an example of how it should look. And then on the content codes, it's more just general advice for me, things that are weakening their writing. We'll take a closer look at this one, letter B, in just a second in action in a kid's actual paper. And then this one down here, letter G, is my catch-all, basically. Sometimes kids just write stuff and I just sit there and I look at it and I have no idea. So instead of trying to unpack that crazy package, I just write G on it and move on. All right, so each kid gets a copy of that code sheet, so they use that as the decoder ring of sorts once they get back their papers, which look like this. So this is sort of an overview of like what a kid could expect. A couple of small comments from me, but really I just stick with the codes. Then the next step in the process is the kid reads over my comments, looks at my grade, which would be on a rubric, and there are 10 different areas I'm evaluating in this essay, and I basically just check if it's an A, B, C, D area for that skill. Everything from the quality of the thesis statement to MLA citation formatting to the writer's voice is in there. So there's just those 10 things I'm evaluating, and they see that rubric ahead of time also. And I have the 4-mode rubrics, so those rubrics vary depending on what type of writing we're doing, obviously. But let's go back to what the process looks like for the kids. So after they read over my comments and they get the grade, they're not done. Oh, the learning has just begun. Often before, when I was, a younger teacher, that would be it. They would look at the rubric and then move on. So the thing that took me 20 minutes to grade would take them 20 seconds to look at and then poof, be gone. But the actual growth as a writer comes from digging into the codes. So the first thing they do is they number all of the circled letters and circled numbers. So this student, Sally student in my model here, she has 13 codes that she's going to have to do essay corrections on tonight. It sounds like a lot, but actually they go pretty quickly once I show you how it goes. All right, so you already saw that guy. Let's zoom in here. Here we go. All right, so if we take a look at 2B, which is number 4 there, you can see that that's the good old Oxford comma. So there's the rule, use commas to separate items in a series. And then I give a little example to show Sally how to do it. Or letter B here, she's done twice. Basically, the kid is just wordy, omit unnecessary words. And then the section is fluff or filler or just taking up space without saying anything new. I just want her to get to the point already. So I just write the codes exactly as I would talk to them. She's done it twice in a row. You could drop those words out and improve the flow and power of the sentence. This one, number 8, is actually the beginning of an introductory paragraph, but she's just launched with concrete detail instead of actually giving a topic sentence. So if she looks on her code sheet, she'll see that in is missing topic sentence. And actually, let's slide back up here for number 2. I use the letter D. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. You might not mind this, but I hate rhetorical questions, especially in freshman papers. Rhetorical questioning can be a really effective strategy, but my freshmen don't do it. They just use it to fill up space on the paper. So I call them out on it, and I make them write that code. I don't like rhetorical questions freshman year. Junior and senior year, once they kind of know what they're doing, have a better handle on that, then I let them fold those back in occasionally. But at this level, at freshman level, it's definitely just a crutch. So that's one of my codes because I don't like it in writing for this group. All right, so once they've looked at the code sheet and they then use that as their reference, then they're ready for the correction round, which looks like this. They get out a sheet of binder paper and they're going to hand write the rule and then make the fix. So number 1, it was a good title, but they underlined it, which you wouldn't do in a work that hasn't been published. So Sally writes the rule, and then she makes the fix. Number 2, it's write the rule, and then the fix is just omitting the rhetorical question. Notice in number 3 and 4, I don't have students write out the full sentence to make a grammar fix. I just need them to isolate the error and show me that they know what to do. So they work through those. And kids who give me clean papers from the beginning have fewer essay corrections for homework that night. Kids who give me really, really messy papers, they've got a lot of essay corrections to do that night. There's a whole lot more detail about this system in my ebook package. And I'm sorry, this one is a paid product. I give away a lot of stuff for free for you guys, but this one I do have to pay some bills for. It's pretty extensive too. It's an ebook. It's all 4 of the code sheets, rubrics, a tally sheet, tips and tricks, all kinds of stuff in there for you. It's also all editable, which I thought was important because the stuff that bugs me in writing might not bug you. Or, if I'm using this with an 11th grade class, somebody who wants to use it with a 7th grade class would want to change the wording, change the rules, maybe pare it down a bit, not have 10 grammar things, maybe just have 4 grammar things that you're working on. All right, but that's hack number 1. Even if you don't use mine, that's totally cool. You could make your own. Just make up a code sheet of the stuff you know what you write most often. Write that up, use that as the decoder ring for your kids, and then once you have those codes memorized, you will be zipping through your papers. Okay, hack number 2, avoid TMI. Back in those early days, I was writing out too much information on those kids' papers, and I felt the need to mark every teeny tiny little misstep that I saw. And the result was that I was overwhelming my kids, and it was like coming at them with a fire hose, knocking them over. So instead of all of that feedback, I just used the codes. And if you're early in the year or you have low-level writers, you could start with fewer codes. Like maybe you don't need 10 grammar codes the first essay or first paragraph. Maybe you start with 3 codes, and those are the things you mark. Those 3 areas. Go for the big wins early, and later on in the year or even next year, then we can start to refine and mark some of those smaller things. But please, please do not mark every single teeny tiny thing. It takes up all your time, and it really doesn't help them because they get overwhelmed and defeatism kind of cloaks them. So pick and choose, stick with the codes, figure out what matters most to you for this assignment, and just mark those things. Okay, hack number 3 is when you're deep in grading, you're gonna come across what I call a sticky wicket. It is this big ugly thing in a kid's writing that really is egregious and needs to be addressed, but doesn't fall under one of the codes. Instead of writing out a long description of why this is not a good move, I have found that if I just write, "See me," on the paper and then talk to the kid when everyone else is doing the essay corrections, I'm working around the room and I have a list of kids to check in with. If I just explain to them what the error is and how to fix it, that goes a long way toward helping them understand what it is rather than me trying to write out a detailed explanation. If I write it out, it takes me double the time to grade that essay, and the kid doesn't really know what I'm talking about. So a quick little conversation helps that. So tip number 3 is just keep going, right? See me and keep going. Don't try to explain super complicated things in the margins of an essay. You're not doing either you or the student a favor. Okay, tip number 4 is a weird one because I'm a weird person and I'm a little when it comes to grading. Basically, you could try one of my hacks, which is to treat grading like a game show. So when I'm deep in a stack and exhausted and I need a little like more motivation, I get my phone and I set the stopwatch and I treat it like, 5 minutes to win it. So I've got to grade this essay in 5 minutes. So I set the stopwatch, I start the stopwatch, I turn it face down, and I grade, and I pick the stopwatch up and I see how fast I was. And then the next paper, I try to beat that time. I know, I'm weird, but whatever. It works for me. It might work for you. It might be a terrible idea, but it is a hack. Totally works. Give it a go. All right, hack number 5. Another strange one, but I hope you try it because it's working for me, is on major works, I don't have my kids put their names on their papers. I have them just put their ID numbers. So they still do MLA formatting, but wherever their full name or last name would be on the little headers, I have them just put their ID number. And when that happens, I get a stack of papers and I go way faster because I'm not slowing down, and my smushy teacher heart is thinking about, oh, that funny thing this kid said, or that kind of annoying thing that kid did, whatever. It takes the human element out of my grading, and it really is just about the work. I apply my codes evenly. I am very kind and professional in my comments on every paper, and I always find one or two things, nice things a kid is doing, that at least one or two nice things, and I'll make a comment on that on the paper, so I don't have to worry about like offending the super tender kids because I'm super professional and kind. And it just moves it along because, again, I'm not thinking about the person, I'm just thinking about the work. All right, hack number 6, another little kind of crazy one, and it won't work for everyone, but you could play Freaky Friday. Now what that is if you have a colleague that you trust and you're on the same grade level and you're having the same assignment due at the same time, if you're using the same codes, you could just switch stacks of papers. She grades yours, you grade, or yeah, she grades yours, you grade hers, and you guys give yourselves a deadline. By 3 o'clock Thursday, we will have these graded. And then you're like committed to like do it for your friend, and you're not emotionally connected to the papers. How do you think the SAT and SBAC graders get through things so quickly? They don't know the people that they're grading. They're just applying the rubric, hitting a few numbers, and moving on to the next one. So we could bring some of that into our world too if you have a coding system in place. All right, there are 6 hacks. Hope you give them a go. Stick around. Episode 3 coming at you. Even more hacks next week. All right, you guys, hope you're having a great summer. I'll see you soon.